For those of you who have got this far with your hype project, well done. You're now getting into some bonus skills which you can use to enhance your hype project. One of these is the ability to make stop motion animations. I'm just going to show you the assets for this animation that have already been created. I got, let's have a look here. Basically, I set up a camera on a tripod and I shot this piece of paper with this note written on it. This has obviously been manipulated and colorized in Photoshop. But anyway, I'll just show you. So there's 7 images, 7 photos that were taken. They were being converted into PNGs and made the correct size for our project, which is 1024 by 690, as I'm sure you're aware. Let me just show you what each of these photos look like. Again, if I click on one of these images in the Mac OS X Finder, then I can just press the spacebar to preview it. I can then use the arrow keys to go up and down through the files in this folder. So you'll get a pretty good idea of what the image sequence is for creating this stop motion animation of the paper sort of screwing itself up. I'm just going back through them now. So this will be quite a good effect as a stop motion animation. Now I've already set this up in Hype, and if I scrub through the frames, you can see that's already set up there. But I'm going to build this from scratch because so I can just show you how to do it. Now, I'm going to completely delete all the elements in this scene. This paper 1 element, I'm just going to select it and delete it. So I have a completely blank scene. I'm now going to go back to the Finder and I want to drag in the first image of my sequence. So drag that in and go back to Hype, and because it's the exact right size for my movie, I can just line it up in the middle there. Now, a stop motion animation is done by changing the background image property of this element. I tried to explain to you that in Hype, images, any of the assets that you bring in are actually a Hype rectangular element, just like this. If I go element rectangle, any images are they get automatically placed inside a Hype rectangular container. Just to make this even clearer, if I've got this element selected and I go to my element inspector, I could change the fill style of this to image and find an image. Let's just grab the first image in my file, and you'll see that it has placed the image right into this rectangular element. And if I was to scale that rectangular element, because the background is set as image scale to fit, it will scale to fit that rectangular element. So there's nothing different between that and this element. Okay, I'm just going to delete that example now and just make sure this is still framed up in the middle. Okay, so what we're essentially doing is changing the background image of this rectangular element, and we're going to do it every frame for, well, we're going to do it every 3 frames until all 7 images have been used to create this stop motion animation. So I'm just going to select this image, and the property, as I said, that we're going to be animating is the background image property. If this doesn't come up for you automatically, you can click on this arrow in the properties timeline and select a new property that you're wanting to animate over time. So, and just select background image if it isn't already there. Okay, so I'm going to add my first keyframe at 0 frames, and there we have it. Okay, the second keyframe I want to appear 3 frames later. So I'm just going to click in my timeline, my time display here on the timeline, and just type in 3, and my playhead moves to 3 frames, and I'll put in a new keyframe there for background image. Now, if I go to my element inspector, go to background fill style image, and I choose a different image, which will be the second frame of my stop motion animation, you will now see that I've got the first sort of sense of movement between those 2 frames. Okay, I'm going to subsequently add the other 5 frames of this animation. So let's go to frame 6, add another keyframe. I'm going to choose a different image, put in the third one. Let's move to frame 9, add a keyframe, choose number 4, move to frame 12, add a keyframe, 5th, etc. Okay, and that's it. We've set up our stop motion animation. Let's preview this scene in the browser. Command, Option, Return. Okay, and I'm just going to refresh that and watch it again. And it looks a little bit jerky at the moment, but don't worry about that. I think that it will speed up when the movie is actually loading properly. So we'll close Safari. That's how you make a stop motion animation. I'm just going to add a few enhancements to this scene to make this work more effectively. Let's go back to the beginning. I'm going to add a timeline action to pause the timeline right at the beginning. Pause main timeline. I'm also going to just add a timeline action at the end to advance automatically to the next scene. Scene, station, and I think I'm going to make that push top to bottom. And now, because this will be paused on the first frame, I need a way to progress I need a way to tell Hype when I want it to progress to the second keyframe and then on to the next scene. I'm going to make this a button click. What I want to do is make a transparent button over this paper that I can then add an action to, and which will then send my movie forward. So I'm going to lock my animation, so that's not going to move anymore, or by accident, and let's add a rectangle. And I'm going to make this rectangle the exact size of the piece of paper, and I'm now going to take the opacity of that rectangle to 0. Essentially what I'm doing is creating an invisible button for my movie, so the user will have the impression that they clicked the piece of paper in order to cue this frame-by-frame animation. So for this element, this transparent rectangle, let's add an action on mouse click, continue timeline, main timeline. And that's it, it's all set up. So I'm going to show you how this works. The opening titles scene already has a timeline action to go straight onto the next scene, which is note. So let's just preview it straight from the top of the Hype project. Command return. And the timeline pauses here on the first frame of this scene, and you can see that my invisible button is available there. When I click it, it screws up the piece of paper and advances to the next scene. And that's that. So, frame by frame animations in Hype. Beautiful and easy.